Hey everyone, Slightly here. Now, this is going to be a walkthrough tutorial video on how to use SleightlyBall in-game, as well as some tips and tricks. If you needed help with installing it in Unity, go ahead and check out the Unity tutorial. And if you needed to see a sort of showcase or demo reel on what you can do with the system, we have one of those as well. Now, this is going to be a little bit long because there's a lot to cover. So if you want to skip through, we're going to have some timestamps down here in the description, alright? Now, I'm going to go ahead and show you every single feature, and this is going to assume that you've installed everything under default settings, alright? And if not, just go ahead and adjust accordingly, alright? We have settings for those in the installer. So, let's get started. Go ahead and follow along if you want with the menu down here in the corner. And I'm going to go ahead and open up our submenu for SleightlyBall. And here you have three options. You have one menu per hand to turn on the balls, and then a settings one down at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on a ball over here. This is mode 1 or ball 1 I have on this hand. I'm going to turn on the other one on this hand. And basically you can see we support up to 8 actual balls per hand. So you can actually have 16 different ones if you want. I don't recommend it. Optimization's a thing. But yeah, we have 2 different balls here. All right. And by default, you have 3 gestures you can use to control these. Finger point for primary hand, primary meaning right hand's primary is right, left hand's primary is left, right? Secondary control by lifting your thumb from finger point to handgun. We'll go ahead and switch it over to the other hand. That's what secondary hand control is. So finger point, handgun, just a 1 finger difference if you're on Index or Oculus. If you're on another controller, I apologize, good luck. We have gesture remapping in the installer. So again, finger point for primary, handgun for secondary, and then lastly, open hand for orbits. So I can go ahead and just chuck them. You'll see they start orbiting around me at whatever momentum I release them at, right? So there's a specific set radius. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn off my left hand for now. And we're going to go ahead and just play with this right hand right now, okay? If I go into settings, we have an option up here in modes, right? Oops, modes, called advanced control. And what that is right now we're on simple control. And that's sort of in case this is going to get more overwhelming for you. Because on advanced control, we actually have 7 different gestures that you can use to play with the ball system, alright? So again, finger point for primary, handgun for secondary, open hand for orbit, right? Now we have victory, which is a 1 finger change from finger point to 2 fingers, to shoot, right? And then we have rock and roll to immediately recall it back into my hand. Right? As opposed to if you were to shoot and do finger point, it's going to fly back and forth. And sometimes you don't want that, right? We have fist, which is going to control it with my head. Notice my hands are not moving, but it's going to follow my head. This is particularly good if you're on desktop. And thumbs up will go between our hands. So now we can sort of adjust this way. And you can combine all of these into any sort of combos that you want, right? But go ahead and play around with that. That's advanced control. And again, if it's too much for you at first, that's what simple control's for. You can go ahead and just use 2 or 3 gestures at a time. Now you'll notice another option here called throw/shoot. And that is if you notice when I do victory, it shoots because I have it enabled. If I actually switch throw shoot off, it'll switch back to throwing. And throwing is sort of like a release where if I victory, it's just going to let go of the ball wherever it is. But it's going to retain momentum. So if I actually want to chuck it, it's kind of like a throw, right? If I want to just like lightly toss it up, I can, right? Things like that. We have full body mode and demo mode. I'm going to leave those for later, so we're going to skip that for right now. I have another option here for distance. It's a radial puppet. So what that means is as I increase this, it'll increase the distance from my hand. So I can actually play with the ball across the world, mess with the ball in someone else's face, play with it in the sky, make huge trails. All right, you can do whatever you want with that. It'll also scale up across both your hands, so I can pass back and forth like that, right? And it'll also increase the orbit radius, so you can have it orbit you at a huge range if you want. I'm not really going to showcase that right now because it's going to be hard to capture on this small camera, right? So that's distance. We have strength here, and strength adjusts how strong the attraction is to the ball to your finger. So right now it's at 50%. If I crank it all the way down, you'll see it's very slow and open. You can make very big loops, right? If I crank it all the way up, it'll pull it very tight knit. And strength is nice because you can do a lot of cool tricks. Like for example, if you thumbs up, what I like to do is do a lot of like sort of contact juggling style tricks, right? So it's really up to you what you want to do with that. That's what I use for strength personally. I'm going to turn that back. Now we have the physics submenu. In physics, we have a few things we can enable and disable, like collision. So right now, you'll notice when I toss this into the ground, it kind of goes through the ground. By enabling collision, it will now bounce off of surfaces, right? Any world colliders. Be careful because this can also hit portals, and that's why it's disabled by default. Also change things like, you know, collider-based mirrors and such. We can disable bounce. And by disabling bounce, now you can maybe want to go, I don't know, bowling or something, right? You can just chuck it into the ground. It'll just slide across the ground. Maybe pinball around the ground. And then we have gravity. So with gravity, if I chuck it in the air, it's going to fall down, right? And then bounce around like that. So I can just chuck it around. Anyway, you get the point. I'm going to go ahead and bring the ball back. Turn off gravity and collision for now. Now next we have the world constraint menu. So with world constraint, we can actually drop our different anchor points in the world. So for example, if I want to drop my right hand right here, the ball will stay there whenever I have it go to my right hand. That means if I use a gesture to go to my left hand, I can call it back, and I can send it back and forth. If I use rigid recall, it'll kind of snap back there as well. So from here, right there, etc. You can world constrain every single one of your anchors. That is your right hand, left hand. If you have full body mode, right foot and left foot. And then also your head anchor and your chest anchor as well. The chest one being the orbit radius one. So with that, you can do a lot of cool tricks. Like if I put the ball right here, call it back over here, and I can make it suddenly jump to you. I think I do one of those shots in the showcase. I don't know, right? If I recall. But that's what you can do with world constraint, and essentially drop 6 points around the world, make the ball fly around the world as much as you want, right? Lastly, over here we have piloting, sort of like taking the ball and flying it like a drone. So I'm going to open pilot, and I'm going to pilot my right ball. And if I hit right ball, it'll drop in place, and I can use this sort of menu. I guess it might be cut off on your screen, my apologies. And you can use that to sort of drive the ball around, right? Using my thumb on my menu. Now this will go only on a flat horizontal plane. If I do thumbs up in either one of my hands, it'll switch the forward and backward to go up and down instead. So I can go like this, up and down. And if I close the menu, it will stay where it is for as long as I want it to, until I do my specific recall gesture, which for me is rock and roll, right? And that's how piloting works. Now be aware that piloting will desync between players remotely. So other people may not see it in the exact spot you do whenever you're piloting. So you'll want to recall every once in a while and reset. All right, be careful with that. Lastly, what we're going to cover, let's go back to modes. We have full body mode. And by enabling full body mode, I'm going to go ahead and switch the camera view for you so you can see my feet. All right. With full body mode, there's two types of full body modes. We have simple and complex. Simple is easier to manage when you're starting at first, where essentially you replace your head control and your between hands control with your primary and secondary feet respectively. So that'll look like this, where I can go ahead and move it around with this foot or this foot, right? And I can call it back up. Now, if you use complex mode, rather than just adding or swapping two different anchor points with your head and between hands, let's say you wanted to use all of them at once, complex mode lets you go ahead and do a gesture in your opposite hand from the one that's on to essentially switch all the gestures from my hand to a foot. What that means is, rather than just calling it to my foot, not only can I do regular, I can also do recall to my foot. We can do some sort of like little hacky sack kind of stuff, right? You can make it orbit specifically your foot and not your body, right? You can launch it from your foot if I have throw or release, sorry, right? If my index controllers want to work, okay, we're gonna, there you go, right? You can go between feet if you really want to for any reason. I don't know why, but you can. And you can just do a bunch of cool tricks intertwining between your feet, your hands, both feet, both hands, and just going back and forth, right? So that's complex full body mode. Takes a little bit of practice, so good luck with that. Lastly, we have on here, not a very common setting, but if you choose to enable it, we have a demo mode. So I'm going to turn off the ball for a quick second. And with demo mode, we have essentially these sort of hard balls at the joints of your fingers. And what this lets you do is it lets you visualize sort of where the balls are attracted to or where they will go as you do your gestures, right? So this is more for troubleshooting purposes or for practice if you just want to go ahead and practice. And it's a good way to show other people or explain to other people how the balls are following different points around your body. So for example, if I turn on one of the balls, you can see this lantern will always follow the blue ball. So if I send the blue ball over there, it's going to follow, things like that, right? This is where my head tracking point is, right? This is where my between hand point is. And you get the idea. And with that, I think that pretty much brings us to a close with the whole menu. Now go ahead and check out all the other configuration settings on the installation side, which give you a lot more flexibility. If you don't want some of these features, you can take them out. If you do want some of them, you can include them. If you want to change whether they are enabled by default or if they save, that's all there. All right. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.